You're one of the finest friends I've ever had, and he's so enthusiastic. Sometimes he barrels into your life and like a bowling pin and knocks everything down. Good for you. I love you, Luke, and you brought the most beautiful lady in Europe with you, and you're welcome here anytime.
Okay,
We go
but
way
say
back.
something for your friends in Amsterdam.
Well, Amsterdam, we all know, is the most free, future, humanist city in the world. It's that small little country, Holland. There's Germany, and there's France, and all of England. And these sailors went around with skill. The Dutch knew how to navigate. They knew how to take that trip, and they never did it with war. The one thing about the Dutch Empire, the Asian, no guns. It was done with trade, good things. They would take your vegetables, and we'll give you back Dutch clocks. But I love Amsterdam. All civilized human beings love Amsterdam. And Luc Sala and Simon Vinkenoog. I've been called the Simon Vinkenoog of America. He played the role very similar to mine of scholarly, urging people to fuck their heads up. Wonderful gentleman, writer, philosopher. Simon Vinkenoog. Wonderful name, huh?
Mm-hmm. I think that Timothy was one of the key players in such a profound change in the perception of reality in society that the society doesn't have the remotest idea yet what's happened to it. I mean, I think that even 30 years later, I can just feel the repercussions of it still going out.
People like me are relatively new, being hit by what he did. But we would remember him as an artist, or as a teacher,
I
or as
think
just...
he'll be remembered as, it depends on how that period of history is seen over time. I mean, I think the 60s was a very crucial turning place in the way we saw institutions, the way we saw the individual, the way we saw realities. I think it was the almost the coming into social consciousness of Einstein's relativity in a way, in a social sense. And psychedelics played, if it's seen that they played that key role, and then carried by the minstrels of rock and roll and all folk music and all out into the world. And once that historical perception is there, I think Timothy's will be acknowledged as a catalyst in that process. I mean, I think he's just one of them, obviously, but he was, I think he was a catalyst in that. I think he will also be seen as eccentric, as
a rebel.
As a rebel.
Very few areas of life he hasn't touched. Politics, science, psychedelics, consciousness.
Yeah.
Art.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it's interesting that there are...
Would you do it again if you...
Would I?
Yeah, well, you worked with him.
I worked with Timothy for the first, we met in about 1960, and from about 61, when I first took mushrooms, to 65, when I went my own way, really. Timothy and I felt that I could justify my life by creating a space for Timothy to do what he needed to do. That would have been sufficient justification for my life. By 65, I didn't feel that way anymore. I felt that Timothy had his view, and that was different than my world, and I think we have taken very different paths. I think Timothy is more of a visionary and I'm more of a mystic. I think I'm more focused on emptiness, and Timothy still is more focused on the delight of the play of form.
Would you make another distinction, like him being the magic, the mage, and you being the mystic?
Yeah, sure.
He tried to change.
Yeah, he's magic in the play of form. He plays with form. And I'm interested in
receiving,
coming back behind form and getting established in that, and then being in form. I mean, I can say he's already established in that, but I'm not sure that's true. So, I mean, we just have really our interests have differed, our styles, our relationships, our work is different, and it's really interesting because we went through a period of putting each other down for that. But I think we're well beyond that now, and we just honor our differences, and the love is very strong.
Yeah, that's what I feel.
Death is when we remember we are not alone. De dood is wanneer we ons herinneren dat we niet alleen zijn. Tim Leary liet ons dat ervaren tijdens zijn leven. Als ik aan Tim denk, dan voel ik me niet alleen. So death is when we remember we are not alone. And so is life and love.
The natural state of the brain is chaos. We're dealing with a complexity of information. The first thing to do is to overwhelm your focused mind, your linear mind, by overloading signals, digital patterns, clusters of photons and electrons, which produce a pleasant state of confused chaos. This is the state of the brain when it is ready to be informed, that is, to be reprogrammed. The human brain contains 100 billion neurons. Each neuron is as powerful as a large computer, and each neuron has around 10,000 connections with other neurons. Within our foreheads, there's a chaos. Inside our brains, there is a galaxy of information which is incomprehensible to our linear mind. This contrasts and compares perfectly with the chaos without. We're living in a universe which has 100 billion galaxies, each galaxy with star systems, planets, a complexity, again, which to our minds right now is chaotic, incomprehensible. Chaos is beautiful. Now, many times we are afraid because we want order. We can't deal with the confusion and the disorder. We want form. We want rules. Yes, throughout human history, there have been people, religious leaders, political leaders, who will give you order. They'll give you rules and commandments. But chaos is basically good. Relax, surf the waves of chaos, and learn how to redesign your own realities. Sit back, flow, open your eyes, turn off your mind, unfocus, and let the waves of chaos roll over your brain. Float, drift, zoom, design, create, new order, your style, from chaos. Yes. Yeah. Chaos. Chaos.
You know, Tim has, he's very ill.
Well, not so. Well, I know his exact age. He's 75. I saw him recently because I went to he was coming through Berkeley to give a book reading, and so I went. I hadn't seen him for a number of years, but the manager of the bookstore recognized me and says, "You have to introduce Tim Leary to the group." And so when they told Tim Leary there, he said, "Well, Houston can introduce me after I introduce him." So it was, as always, it's lively around Tim. And I have just very mixed feelings. There were those 3 years of very great closeness as we were engaged in what at that point was a very serious inquiry in a very strange area. But then we came to the parting of the ways because he turned out to be a rebel, and I hope I'm a reformer. And he split with the university, walked out on it. I stayed within it, and he went for a free lifestyle, whereas I was committed to a monogamous marriage. And so we parted the ways, but I still have great affection. But it is sad because his mind has been, the term is really fried by these substances, so much, and his attention span is now very, his body is haggard.
Well, maybe that is because he's ill at the moment, but I've known him for about 6 years pretty well. And
6 or, yeah.
Yeah, so I only know him, and I've always been amazed about his warmth. You've been at his house, or you've seen him privately, not on stage, and he is one of those people that I always admire for warmth. So I'm sorry to hear this.
The aim of human life is to know thyself. Think for yourself. Question authority. Think with your friends. Create new realities. Philosophy is a team sport. Philosophy is the ultimate aphrodisiac pleasure. Learning how to operate your brain, learning how to operate your mind, learning how to redesign chaos. The religious leaders and the political leaders want to give you orders to run your life, to determine how you think. The basic goal is to operate your own mind. Think for yourself. Around 3,000 years ago, a group of human beings in Athens, Greece, developed a new philosophy. The basic religion of humanity is called humanism. Socrates said, the aim of human life is to know thyself. Create and design your own order in the chaos. Socrates did not give commandments. Socrates did not impose order. Socrates asked questions. He encouraged his friends to speculate, to design, to create, to interact their own versions of reality. Socrates said, the way to perform philosophy is in small groups, raising questions, learning from each other, changing your mind, growing together, thinking together. The religious leaders said, you can't say that, Socrates. The gods are in control. Who are you to say you have to say? How dare you think you can know? Gods determine. Sacrifice to the gods. Obey the gods. Socrates said, no. Look within. For that, they gave Socrates the hemlock, because he dared to tell people, think for yourself, and question authority. To think for yourself, you must learn how to reprogram, reform, inform your own brain. To do this, to take responsibility for your brain, it is necessary to question everything that you have been taught, to question authority, to learn, to take the brave step of taking responsibility for operating your brain, for designing, redesigning, reforming the chaos within. Throughout human history, as our species has faced the frightening, terrorizing fact that we do not know who we are or where we're going in this ocean of chaos, it has been the authorities, the political, the religious, the educational authorities who attempted to comfort us by giving us order, rules, regulations, forming in our minds their view of reality. To think for yourself, you must question authority and learn how to put yourself in a state of vulnerable, open-mindedness, chaotic, confused vulnerability to inform yourself. Think for yourself. Question authority. Operate for yourself. Question authority.
It is my very great honor and privilege to introduce Dr. Timothy Leary. Introducing Dr. Leary is kind of superfluous. All you got to do is say Timothy Leary and the audience goes wild generally. I would like to try something different and really introduce him. To most of the American people, Dr. Leary is known as the LSD guru. And most newspapers, I believe, have it set up as one lump of type, Timothy Leary, LSD guru, so they don't have to reset it every time. Dr. Leary was one of the pioneers of group therapy back in the 1950s. When Leary first went into group therapy, some elderly people in psychology and psychiatry were saying group therapy is an oxymoron, a contradiction in terms. Now it's, of course, the most popular and form of therapy and obviously the most effective. All the 12-step programs are variations on group therapy. Dr. Leary designed the Leary interpersonal grid, which is the most widely used diagnostic grid in this country. It's used in the California prison system and probably in the California educational system. Probably most of you have taken the verbal form, the written form of that test at some time in your careers. Yes, he was the LSD guru. He did a lot of very important research with LSD in the 60s. Then they put him in the penalty box. On the more advanced planets, people who make great discoveries are put in the Hall of Fame. On the backward planets, we put them in jail. Leary in the 70s wrote a series of really brilliant books combining psychology and futurism. These books never got the circulation they deserved because he has been so smeared and misrepresented in the mass media. But Leary considers future stages of evolution in those books. He talks about things like why do astronauts and the Russian cosmonauts, why do they report experiences very similar to LSD? What is there about zero gravity that mutates the human nervous system in a manner similar to the psychedelics? What does it mean if most of the human race is going to be migrating into space at some time in the near future with mutated nervous systems, with mystical experiences in quotes, similar to all the astronauts and cosmonauts who've gone up so far? There's a lot of longevity research going on. What does it mean when we're all going to be living a lot longer than our ancestors and migrating into space? He takes up a lot of interesting questions like that. In the last 10 years, and these are very interesting and important books. In the last 10 years, he's done a great deal of work on computer software and hardware, and has put out some very interesting teaching programs and games. I have known him since 1964. Which if I haven't damaged my chromosomes irreparably, that's 26 years. He has never ceased to astound me, amaze me, perplex me, and teach me something new every time we meet. And I expect in the next 26 years he will continue to do that, and if longevity research pays off, he'll be doing that for a couple of 100 years more. It's a privilege to introduce him, and you should all feel it's a real privilege to hear his latest thinking.
The wonderful Ito family, or in Amsterdam and in Germany, there's a whole new generation of young people who've never heard of Huxley or Timothy Leary, but who are discovering that psychedelic plants and vegetables can be used for trance experiences. It's called acid house music in London. It's called Chicago industrial music in America. Oh, but it's all over the world. It's called ambient in Berlin. There's Mondo 2000 talks about a group called D-Light. They call it dance. The basic strategy here is you set up a hypnotic trance experience with either LSD or ecstasy, and you just kind of dance for 4 hours. And then there are certain words, mantras that come in and out. Many of my words, many of Robert Anton Wilson's words come in. You know, suddenly it's amazing how another generation who perhaps have not read any books about this, intuitively, instinctively developed the group shamanic experience, and it's becoming very, very popular in Europe and this country. Okay, we're in good company here. Now, the amazing thing about being alive these days is that if you keep your mind open, I find that every couple of months there's a new idea comes along, or
an old idea that repeats and returns, that suddenly, those of you that have ever used a word processing or a spreadsheet, the spreadsheet and computer, if you can, that's all the, the accounting things, you just change one number, like the percentage of sales, whatever, and the whole system shivers, and all the figures change so the bottom line is different. Well, my poor brain has that experience about once a week now. And there I said the word. I've said the word. The great taboo word, the word that we've been circling around for 3,000 years. I said it. Brain. Brain. I dedicate my comments today to the person that has been advising me over the last 30 years, my brain. I find it amusing to think how irreverent of the DNA code, how impertinent of the DNA code to locate God in the mind of every human being that's born without permission from the Vatican or from the other religious organization. The wonderful thing about the brain, the glorious thing about the brain is every individual has one, and every individual is designed to be the registered owner and operator of that brain. There's something about the brain, you see, that can't be, you can separate it, but basically a brain is an individual personal equipment that is going to be there as long as you are alive. When we talk about empowering the individual, and that's certainly been my theme song for the last 30 years, and Robert and John Lilly, the rest of it, all comes down to we're trying to empower the individual to think more clearly and to broaden perspective. What we're talking about is basically empowering the brain or supplying the brain with what she tells me she needs to really get her act going on this planet. What does the brain want? I mean, talk to your brain sometime. Next time, you get in the right mood, dial brain and see what she tells you. And, my brain tells me, number one, she wants to be fed. She wants to be stimulated. She wants to be inundated with. She's starving. She's bored. She's the kind of klutzy ABC life we lead. Another terrible thing that DNA did to the Judeo-Christian Islamic tradition and the Bush administration. It's not my fault. I've tried to explain over the years. It's not John Lilly's fault. It's not any of our fault. DNA designed the human brain with roughly 70 or more receptor sites. And these receptor sites are little doors to be opened by some sort of botanical or vegetative neurotransmitter. What we're talking here is about a incredible symbiosis between the botanical queendom or kingdom and the mammalian species over the millions of years. The first things we automatically, I'm awed by the way that Ralph Metzner and Richard Alpert and Aldous Huxley and Alan Watts and a group of people that assembled with us at Harvard in the early 60s, how we intuitively, blindly but instinctively recapitulated the anatomy and the technology of the shamanic group. We said, boy, don't take LSD by yourself. I mean, once when we were at Millbrook, we had the highest level of shamanic acrobatics and machoism. You could go in the meditation house there and take LSD by yourself, and then that's fine, do it, because we were, the support, the setting, the tribal situation was there, so you could do it. But basically, the brain, when she's high and moving and sailing, she wants to be doing it with other people. And I find that now that we get back to education today, I'll talk hopefully a bit about that later, we're coming back to the notion that education happens in a small group with fast feedback and no teacher up there, but just like a team or people moving and teaching each other, and small group fast feedback. That's what the shamanic situation is all about. to fly us around. Mobility. My brain wants to travel. My brain wants to move around, and she wants to communicate. And to do that, you have to have an industrial age that'll give her, well, the lenses. The Amsterdam lens grinders. They gave us the microscope and the telescope. Now, you know, when I look at the virtual reality people fighting about who did what, I always think about Amsterdam because the lens grinders thought that the lenses were just going to be used for rich people who use glasses. It was supposed to correct vision, so you'd have normal vision. That's like using computers to help in business. It never occurred to them that Galileo be running around, you know, and that Leeuwenhoek would look through that microscope and see, you know, starting biology. You know, in Galileo, they were the top scientists and scholars. You know, Wilson, another world out there.
Leary line. That's Socrates. I stole
9 out of 10 of the astronomers, the astronomers wouldn't look through his microscope. And the 1 out of 10 that wouldn't look at it. And, you know, I saw those two little funny dots around Jupiter, but Galileo, those are not moons. Would you like? A million people have seen Jupiter. There's no fucking moons around. Those are imperfections. Have we heard that before, or have we not?
I was predicting all this stuff. Maybe you were right then. No right or wrong.
The six?
Just seeing the wave and surfing. Seeing the wave.